started looking at some of the telemetry stuff that we are right now have both defined as SI and the other stuff, and we actually noticed that the telemetry is basic from the point of view that there is some stuff, but there is not enough visibility when we're analyzing the packets, and I kind of compose some stuff. So let me do some quick sharing. So that's why I would like to ask community, which means like any like all the companies that basically participate in this, to kind of contribute towards the telemetry, because it seems that we have one company that has basically lots of internal counters which are visible internally, but they are, for example, not streamed on the size side because just the schema is not there, right? So so in general, we have this internal document that we kind of started about the physical topology integrating stuff. And one thing is that we definitely have, for example, Docker stats table. We have basically pod stats, application stats, and we have this counter DB for different counters, right? And we have this different memory info and stuff. But the main interesting counters that I'm actually interested in general from the community perspective, right, is apart from the Docker counters and in general, I'm very interested into DPU counters, especially the per ENI counters and especially DPU counters, right? And they are already defined in the SI port and SI experimental. And if I open this, there is quite a few counters defined per ENI from the point of view of the statistics, right? So we have basically RX bytes, we have TX bytes, right? We have outbound, inbound, and some stuff related to flows, right? There are some stuff related to basically fast, for example, counter for the fast packet is just those two regards to bytes and packets, right? But there is nothing whether for example, let's say the fastpath packet was malform or anything like this, right? Especially from the drops perspective, right? Because like when I'm looking at this, then usually what we'll be looking and when we are investigating different like RCAs or monitoring traffic, right? It's one stuff that we definitely want to figure out which packets are being hit with different parts of the pipeline, which means that definitely how many RX, TX packet, whether we are hitting the specific stuff, right? But we are also interested a lot about error conditions. So like for example, float create fail is okay, but we don't have, for example, any error conditions for the fastpath packets, right? And also some of the counters are kind of like look by entry miss and stuff like this. So when I, for example, look at I compare one of the vendors, I basically drop counters which they are outputting. So there is also counters like, for example, some tap check failures, which is the basically PA validation that we also have in pipeline, that we, for example, don't have this counter exposed. We have some drop for warning, drop policy. We have non-flow misses. I, for example, didn't also see non-flow misses there, right? Session limits, there is something like a flow cannot be inserted, I believe. Error, where is this? There is like flow create, hold on, where is this error? Like flow create request failed. I'm not quite sure if this is, sorry. I'm not quite sure if this is basically the drop session limit exceeds, for example, right? Then there is also, for example, we have the CPS policer, because like we also want to have as much like connections per second, right? So we have also drops because of the CPS policers, right? Some problem with the flow sync when it gets to HA, right? We have also what is the max bandwidth that was reached on the specific NIC and the specific ENI, right? Number of connections per second right now kind of observed, right? ICMP redirects, this is related to fast paths, right? But we also have this ICMP redirect drops, which we, I don't believe, don't have, right? There are some mapping miss. There is, in case, for example, pipeline packet loop was detected. I'm not quite sure if this is applicable for other pipelines. Maybe some of the pipelines, right? There's more granularity into which session were closed by FIN, reset, which session are currently fully established. Sometimes basically the firmware also sends resets in case basically some packets are flowing to the pipeline and they are kind of like misordered or something like this, or basically connection needs to be dropped and then the reset is sent by this, right? So also reset injects that. We also have this, right? And then there is also some VTAP counters, which is the other feature, right? But I think the main stuff that I would like to potentially have companies to potentially participate is to add all those missing counters, because there is lots of valuable counters, whether it's like CPS or for example some inconsistent flow entries, or this ICMP redirect drops, or some like policer drops on the what is this one? On those, and those are not basically covered in those ENI stats, right? As I mentioned, that ENI stats have something there, but they are not 100% fully, I would say, available. And also, I would say comments, it's basically the comment is the same as enum name. So the comment doesn't explain exactly what is in this counter, right? So I was kind of looking at this, is like theoretically I can map it with whatever potentially previously we were kind of doing this, right? But the comment on the counter saying that what this counter does, sometimes is very explainable, right? Some like a same packet, I'm assuming this is HA, maybe, I don't know, right? But at the end, basically the comments which are here in this kind of like experimental branch is like a, it's basically one-to-one mapping of the comment, right? So I think this makes it slightly harder working with this from this point of view, and also I noticed that basically DPUs have much more counters, which are just not exposed here. So so I would like to potentially someone or both companies at the same time to kind of contribute to the same stuff, their own counters, and kind of standardize and kind of discuss in the community which counters we actually want to expose from this different stuff. Like for example, reset sends. I didn't see any counters that for example some reset got injected and anything like this, right? But I know that those counters do exist, right? So I think the main stuff is like we know that counters exist. They were just not exposed to SAI. So it's possible that maybe the SAI was created a long time back for the telemetry. But as we started analyzing this kind of stuff, I think those are the two problems that we basically noticed. Like one of the problems that we noticed is that what the counter means, we kind of right now kind of potentially thinking, but it would be good to kind of clarify in his description what the counter means, right? And also there is lots of counters that we know that they are there, which previously were very useful. Like for example, how many connections per second are being received on the ENI, right? What is the current, for example, bandwidth on the ENI and stuff like this, right? But nothing like this exists here, right? So I think that's the first ask / call to actions for the companies to potentially contribute those counters and kind of cross-check each other whether all the counters are implemented in all the firmware, right? To kind of get this, because it is strange to work and investigate DPUs if, for example, we have some counter, we don't have the counter, and we need to log into the DPU and we see the counter, for example, is only here, right? So yeah, I think that's the first part that I want to discuss, Christina. And I also have a second part that I want to discuss.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember. I'm curious how all of these were created in the beginning, how these got here, and how many we'd be looking at. Does anyone recall from the beginning of the project?
Story on this one. It was definitely last year, but at the same time, I know that last year the different vendors had already some counters, right? So because it was basic Dash session API, so I think it was like first initial check-in, and after this, I think no one kind of updated this going forward. This was, I believe, Reef created this.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's helpful. But I think Reef created, but no one from the community contributed. I think that's the main ask here, especially that Reef that time, I'm not quite sure if he was playing with the cards yet, so he doesn't know what kind of counters the card have. But I know that the counters have more counters,
right?
And definitely they were very useful when we were diagnosing all the integration issues.
So you have the list in your document, and we kind of need to compare to this list here. And
I would say this list in the document, I can share this offline later, right? I think this list in the document was kind of captured from one of the vendors, right? I'm not quite sure if this is the total list because this is only capture some snapshot from one of the card that was active, and I kind of try to put some of the stuff. I asked Devon to kind of clarify. So it would be good if this, I believe, are AMD counters. So it would be good if, for example, AMD can potentially actually contribute to the community their own counters, right? And then, for example, the other vendors can also contribute their own kind of counters, and we can update those kind of stuff and have the full stuff, right? Because like how many TCP resets are being seen, right? How many things kind of stuff that also since and ACK packets, right? Whether we inject resets, right? Those are very, or how many sessions, for example, were closed by the fin versus reset, right? This helps later investigate and figure out if something strange is happening, right?
Yeah. Hey,
Right.
Cynthia.
I had a couple of questions, Michael. Sorry, I joined a little bit late, but I mean, I understand where you're going with this, trying to get support from vendors. So one way to do it is either if you define all the counters you want, you can solicit from each of the vendors how many of them they are able to support, right? We can add a column. Just define all the counters you want, and column A is vendor A, column B is vendor B, column C is vendor C, right? So they'll come back and fill up, and you have a full view of what is possible across.
Yes.
We either do that, which means you have to define all the counters that you think you need, and maybe there's stuff you won't even know, but you will probably find out as you go. At least define everything that you want, right? And then you get the vendors to, update the table with their, supported yes or no. The other way to do it is the vendors publishes whatever they have or can support. And then you map it to, what is the eventual set that you will need out of that, right? So I don't know which one is more efficient. It's an exercise, unfortunately, we have to do. So, that's my 2 cents on this, right? So
yeah. So I kind of did the first grasp. I basically, or first stab on this one because I kind of like list the counters from one of the vendors, right? To kind of saying that those are the counters and those are the counters that I know for sure that we are kind of like have dashboards on it, right? And I know that my team was looking at a majority of those. I'm not quite sure if every single one, but I know that we have dashboards that basically display this kind of stuff, even though they have some like VTAP counters, but I'm not quite sure if these are new. Or those kind of stuff, but I know that we have basically those counters, right? So those counters, I know that they are there, right?
So
some of the
let's put that
counters,
as,
yeah.
those are must-haves, right? Because you're already using them. So those are like the must-haves. You can maybe color code them in a way that, hey, these are in use today. So at least we know these are all absolutely needed.
Yes. So that's the stuff, right? And I basically, I'm not quite sure if there is something else there that just basically because the number is 0 is not being emitted, but maybe very useful, right? That we haven't used before, right? Because for example, when I was looking at the counters, right, the interesting stuff that I kind of also noticed that, for example, there is like a drop for pipeline packet loop, right, which is the counter that we haven't used yet, right? Because the packet was kind of looping this kind of stuff, right? Depending what's the pipeline processing, sometimes pipeline implemented by vendors may have loops, may have not loops, this kind of stuff. But I know that, for example, we didn't use it yet. I don't have immediate need for this, right? But if, for example, there is a possibility that in the pipeline that packet may loop and for some reason be dropped because of this and stuff like this, right? I definitely want to know that there is a counter because at the end we want to know that something wrong was happening, right? So I definitely would like contributions from the vendors as well.
Yeah, wishful counters that you think you will need. But in this subset, is there like a must-have priority 0, priority 1 items that can be tagged? And then, hey, these are the first set that everybody can absolutely, commit to supporting. And then we go beyond to add more things.
I would say
my only fear is you will probably not get everything you need in one shot. and it'll be a little bit iterative, so it's maybe better to kind of partition the problem that way. I mean, there are enough data plane guys on the call here, Sasha, Bud, and others, chime in if you will, right? We've seen this kind of happen in our NPU story as well a lot, right? So
And
you
how
want
many
like a
countries from this are implemented? That's my question. All of them? Because the stuff that
that
this country is defined versus implemented, that's two different stuff, right? So do we have implementation of all of them or
so
not?
the vendors have to come back to you with
Yeah.
this, right? So to say how many of this, at least this is good. They have defined everything that we need. At least that's a good start. How many of them is implemented is very vendor
Yes.
specific
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
And
Because I know.
your
Yeah, I
table
know.
is is the Uber
Yes.
table.
Yes, that's the stuff, right? So yeah, with this table, right, I have basically, in my opinion, I need all of them or like 99% of them, right? Because how many packets and the bytes, TRX, how many open sessions, how many basically we are drop seeing for any reasons, right? Then potentially for specific reasons like the PA validation that we've basically were hitting multiple times, for example, right? Some drop related to policy, which is basically ACLs, right? Some basically flow misses, right? Session exceed, we also basically hit this, right? The unsupported protocol, we sometimes basically was seeing and we're tracking why some traffic is being sent out with those kind of stuff. Invalid VNI, this is the basic invalid VPC number that basically traffic was misrouted, and then we noticed that basically something was not updated on the source side. It was sending to the wrong kind of device, right? This is for VPC peering, so it was basically crossing the VNI from the different stuff, like Eric's policy, right? Bandwidth stuff that I didn't see, but this we are also using of how many, for example, connection percent redirects. Those are, for example, I saw. We don't see redirect drops, right, from the counters, but we are also using this for investigate whether the fastpath is working. So for me, these are also must have. Not quite sure what is this counter. I noticed it was there. Maybe it was temporary one, but I haven't seen any data. I meet it, so I'm not quite sure this is real counter. But there was something like serious NIC data, so I'm not quite sure if someone was prototyping on our side. Most likely not the real counter, but they kind of listed this, right? Inconsistent flow entry, we noticed that this counter sometimes is being emitted, right? Again, the pipeline loop is something potentially maybe pipeline specific, right? Unsupported protocol towards the NVA. This was kind of more granularity towards unsupported protocol. So if I have this, potentially this may be optional, right? But there's only one from this as the optional, right? There is, for example, on the flow, basically how many like kind of like redirected packets versus how many SYN packets we are seeing on the ENI, right? And every time when the session is closed by fin or the reset, you would like to also know it, right? Every time when the session gets established, you would like to know it, right? Every time when we are injecting reset packet, you would like to know it, right? So and they are both in RX and TX direction, right? And that's it, right? So I would say 99% of this or 97% of this is I need to have. Right? Because those are actually we are looking, right? So the priority morality on this one,
Yeah,
I need those because VFP has those, and we are relying on this and this kind of stuff, right?
makes sense. The question
Yeah.
is, this is the first set. I mean, what's there in the code here defined is the first set, really, right? So if you think anything in this set is missing, you should add. You should
Yes.
add this set.
Yes.
And then the vendors have to implement, and obviously a SONiC management test has to be set up for this,
Yes.
a dash test, so
Yes.
that some vendors may support counter X, some may not, so they'll skip that counter test perhaps, right?
Yeah.
That's how we want to gain coverage on this.
Yeah. But also, I would like to later know basically which vendor implemented which counter, right? Because right now my kind of thought is that we have those basic counters which were proposed, right? But no one from the community nor from the vendors commented on this, so I have no clue what's the status of the implementation, and I definitely would like to know.
So I mean, the way it comes out in SONiC management is either they support and pass the test or skip the test.
Yeah.
Right. That's how you will know, how many of them have implemented on every vendor's,
Yes.
environment.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear from others also, Bud or, Senthil and others, right, Sasha?
So, yeah, I have a thought of how we could coordinate would be to place this list into a PR or an issue that we're working on, just get it all listed, just what Michael has. And then we can work with Cynthia, for example. Do you know if you guys have the list of counters and what they mean? And if they have a SI equivalent?
I think we support more counters. I will
Yes,
Oh,
discuss
exactly.
with
great.
Mukesh. I'll
Awesome.
discuss with Mukesh and then we will update it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be good to basically add it plus basically add it to the site and document what exactly the counter mean, right? Because right now
Yeah. Yeah.
the basic site that the Reef did was very basic,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. And then Sasha, do you think on the other side, or even Bud from Excite and all the other people, do you guys feel you have your list of counters that you have that you'd be willing to put into an issue or PR to come together?
We have some more counters, I think.
Yeah, okay, all right. So do you think that's a good working plan to go forward, is just put it into an issue in PR and get it started that way and start populating?
Sure.
Yeah, because I think it's better than passing a Word document around or something
Yes.
like that. Yeah. Okay. That would be cool. Sorry, go ahead, Michael or Cynthia, if you were going to say something else.
I mean, that's it from the first topic.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts about counters? Hi, Ted. Didn't see you there.
One quick question to Michael is like, Michael, are you planning on defining? I know ideally we would like to have all these counters updated real time, but like, do you have any kind of bare minimum frequency of update, like interval, like of
Like, what do you mean by
updating?
interval?
The counter updates basically, right? Like I think these counters probably would come from the P4 pipeline into the Redis, right? DB. So that update interval is that I'm talking about, or is
I
that?
think I think I will need to check here with people who are expert on the SONiC stuff, because I'm not quite sure. Is it a push or pull model, and who controls this, right? So basically, based on my understanding, the P4 pipeline basically will have its own counters and kind of will count locally, right? And then every sometime all the counters that are collected locally in P4 pipeline will be either push or pull. And I'm not quite sure if this is the pipeline responsibility or this is the SONiC main staff responsibility to pull those. That I'm not sure, right? And I think whatever interval will be there, this will be the kind of like interval to kind of refresh it, right? But I'm not quite sure if this is the. So I think it's the counter DB, but at the same point, I know that we have basically something like a streaming telemetry. So I'm not quite sure if they are streaming directly from the counter DB or how they are updating. So this interval, I'm not quite sure, to be honest, Ramesh.
I see.
So, but I think whatever right now is the streaming interval for the counters, I think from the point of view of the normal NPU, right? Because the switches have some good streaming interval and lots of stuff can be investigated on this, right? I'll assume that the same kind of streaming interval for those ENI counters should be there. Hey, Prince, maybe you will know the answer for the question that was asked. So the ask was basically how often right now is the streaming intervals of the counters to the counters DB.
So
From the
that's
P4.
configure. I mean, from the SI, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is configurable because counter poll can be the interval can be configured for different types of counters. For example, in today's world, port stat is every 1 second, queue stat is every 5 seconds, something like that. So we can program this ENI stat to be polled every 1 second versus 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So that's configurable to answer your question. Yeah.
That is basically consuming the data, right? Like, but updating the
consuming.
data is from a customer perspective, like updating, right? Like the interval, right?
Yeah,
so
I would say
the
like
way
updating locally, you should anyway keep the counters, right?
So there is a Lua script today, right? That runs in that polling interval, and then it fetches these data from the hardware SDK. So that's what I meant by like, and then that Lua script will update the counters DB. So it's like an end-to-end flow, and the script can be polled based on the configured interval.
I see.
Yeah. So what any concerns or any?
No. So we were just talking about like the counters that are needed for telemetry. So just to
Yeah.
kind of brought up this point, like thought like how the frequency probably would have
So
some impact on the performance as well, right?
yeah, so I think in the counters world, the minimum interval is like 1 second, but like I'm not talking about the high frequency telemetry, those kinds of millisecond granular counters, right?
One
So,
second is sufficient for us.
yeah,
Like
yeah, 1 second. Yeah,
that's okay. 1 second is sufficient. Even
yeah,
I would
that's
say
the
even
minimum.
5 seconds would be okay, right? Because
Yeah,
the data is also integrated on the backend, right? So
correct.
we are fine with the 1 second to 5 seconds interval. We are fine.
I
Mhm.
see.
Right. Prince, since you joined, right? I mean, the context, at least Michael discussed earlier, is he has a table of counters from past experience. He has like a
Yeah,
massive
yeah,
table of counters, right? And then we have the side definitions of what is needed. I think that was the screen that is being shared, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the first order is, I mean, there are two ways to skin this problem, right? Michael's list is like the all-encompassing, wish list of everything, right? And every vendor may or may not support everything there is, right? So one approach is, you have a column per vendor and you at least know what the bare, counters that every vendor will bring to the table, and you have a list based on that Michael's table. The second is this has been converted to all the SI counters. And obviously, even here, every vendor may or may not implement everything, right? And that will only be discovered during a test uh, and sonic management to go along with these, right? So I think Michael is trying to figure out how do we get a collation of what I need and what is supportable on each vendor,
Yeah.
right? I guess that's the exercise, right? Michael, you want at least a rough answer.
I think vendor support has to be considered separately, but first I believe like we need to define these APIs,
Uh-huh.
right? SI counters. So
If this list is
irrespective of,
comprehensive, at least this is a minimum requirement. This is an MVP. We need all of these,
yeah,
right?
so we
Mhm.
need all of this, yeah.
Okay.
So the one that is defined, I believe, like it is definitely required. One that is in Michael's new list, I think we need to convert that to SI definitions,
Over,
and then we can see like
Yeah.
over time.
how the capability can be implemented.
And
to,
also, Prince, for this, I would appreciate it because I noticed the official or original PR was by Reeve long time ago, like a year ago,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
I
yes,
would definitely appreciate description of what the counter counts
yeah, yeah.
to make sure everyone understands what exactly it counts. Because right now we have a name, and some of the names are very
Right.
easy to interpret. Some of the names, like I'm not sure, right? So it
Okay,
would be
okay.
good to kind of clarify exactly when was it basically based on which packet or based on which event the counter gets incremented. Like for example, what's the event that increments the counter, right?
I think that we should have a separate
Right? Yeah.
document, right? A document that explains this. So, no, so are you
I mean,
saying like we should update in this comment section, or it's a
yes,
separate?
I think I would like to update it
Yeah.
potentially in comment section because
Okay, okay,
separate document will be out of sync, right?
okay.
I appreciate that it should be here because this is the most kind of single
Makes sense.
source of
Yeah.
truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we have similar approach in the SI headers, right? Where the comments
Correct.
explain what needs to be done. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
Right,
guess
we
this
were
is the MVP list, and then Michael's
Mhm.
yours is the Uber list. So you somehow have to
Mhm.
map from here to what you want, really, right? So
Mhm.
I have a question, Prince. So we were thinking we would, put all this into GitHub, whether it's an issue or a PR, and get started. Like I have the action plan hit there in the chat window, and we could
Yeah.
all update it. But secondarily, if we're looking to create a new SCI entry, how do we do that? I know that I've seen PRs filed by Marian and Open Compute SCI. Is that the process to do that?
So
Or
there
just
are
so
two.
everyone knows how to do it?
I think the dash SI headers are generated through the P4 pipeline. So once we
Mhm.
define the P4 pipeline, there is methods to create the SI headers based out of that. I would assume that is the approach here, unless we have some limitations there, and then we need to go and manually define these. So
Thank
I will
you.
let the owner who is going to do this to analyze both aspects there. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so that's this one, right? So we have those. I definitely will require definition plus make sure we have cover of what it does, covering tests to know basically what's the coverage across vendors, right? And those majority of those I kind of capture, but we are using those, right? And those you basically will need, and whatever other counters is there, I would like to also know, because like if there is something very specific, like a packet loop or this kind of stuff that we should be aware, that we should know, right? Because the main goal, I want to make sure that basically if packets are dropping somewhere, right, I don't want the counters to only be like happy, like in a way that, hey, yeah, we're receiving bytes, we're receiving packets, this kind of stuff, and like done, right? But if something is dropping somewhere because of some loops or whatever this kind of stuff, I need to we need to later know, because otherwise we need to do very extensive packet captures and then cross engage basically you guys to kind of like figure out what exactly the specific packet does to the pipeline, right? So, but the pipeline has specific points, right? Pipeline either advances the packet, right, or basically drops the packet, right? And then also, so definitely going through the pipeline, including how the HA kind of synchronization works, if we need to have some counters there, right? To know each time, for example, the HA was disabled, enabled, reestablished, and stuff like this, right? And the same thing, that's from the point of view of the packets, right? If the customer packets, right? If there's like RX coming, TX, sorry, on the RX, basically there is a SYN coming, right? Those are the very important packets that basically we should differentiate the like a SYN, FIN, and reset, right? Or specific SYNAC, right? That we should differentiate, because those are the important packets, right? Later, the other all-day packets are, for example, counted as a bandwidth, so basically bytes, sure, but we need to know whether it's like a SYN flag happening, SYNAC flag happening, right? There's lots of fins or resets being sent, right? And every single packet that the firmware also injects, like reset, we also need to know that it injected or is indexed in reset this direction or this direction, right? The same fastpath packets being accepted, not accepted, how many fastpath packets arrived, right? So I think some of them are here. And I will share this as a note. So that's the, I think, main topic. And I think, Christina, we don't have much time yet for the second topic, so we can potentially use the next session.
We do. We have 20 minutes.
Oh, 20 minutes. It is not 45. We have 20 minutes. Okay, cool. So
if you guys can hang in, that'd be great.
Yeah. One thing, Prince, I was thinking about mentioning the stuff that we kind of started working on. So basically, this current, I mean, basically like DPU right now have a different action types, right? So basically, traffic can be going directly, can be going to the VNet, this kind of stuff, right? And one thing that I want to mention this, mostly, I mean, it's very obvious, AI, right? AI is running a lot on IPv6, right? So all the basic scenarios and all the tests that we are doing for IPv4, which we basically, all the validations that we are doing for the express route MSC gateway bypass and stuff like this, which is the first scenario, right? It is the scenario that we basically targeting the kind of first main utilization and first kind of like a POC of utilization for the switches, right? But there's more to it, because as the data center grows, and you guys probably saw the announcement from Satya, and I also pasted the link to the nice video in basically LinkedIn, right? Recently, the specialized AI data center was built, right, for the AI workflow. It was called Project Fairwater. And all the AI payloads are basically natively IPv6, right? So if we want to support them with also this specific smart switch form factor or those kind of stuff, right? Then the traffic there will be fully IPv6, need to be fully supported from the point of view whatever is in overlay for sure. Right, so I know that for some period of time we were kind of not prioritizing this, including all the demos were kind of like, okay, V4, let's do this, let's worry about the IPv6 later, right? But this is right now is the kind of scenario that all the AI workloads are like V6. There's no V4 almost, right? So basically that's the stuff, right? And the switch potentially can or will be used or to kind of accelerate some of the traffic there for the V6, right? Plus also will be also used as the bridge to Azure, because the switch implements the VNet VPCs kind of like overlay, which means when the packet arrives on the V6, right, we need to bridge it to entire Azure, and lots of Azure services are V4, right? So we are also starting researching using a switch for also support something like NAT64 gateway, right? Which means that that basically giving just a basic NAT pool functionality, and because like NAT64 is a specific prefix or a set of prefixes, right? That, for example, for the NAT64 are being returned, and there is lots of, for example, Azure services which still has V4, and if those services needs to be accessed from the AI workloads, right? Then for sure there will be DNS64. So those services will basically return like V4 address, and it will be returned in kind of map with this kind of like V6 kind of prefix of the overlay, right? And this kind of stuff, right? And then the idea, how we were kind of envisioning this, and we kind of have a quick discussion with Prince, but some more specified stuff will come to the community, but I want to kind of list it, right, is that right now all the packet outside of, let's say, this machine learning like this will go through, let's say, smart switches to connect to rest of Azure, right? And as it connects to rest of Azure, then basically, let's say, all the V6 traffic from a VNet, right? So that's why basically VNet should kind of support V6, and should kind of support, right? All the V6 traffic from the VNet will hit the smart switch, from which the smart switch, because right now it has the routing support, right, will be able to redirect here, and there, right? So the smart switch right now has the ability to where is this? Smart switch right now has the ability to provide different routes, right? So the smart switch has ability to specify this, for example, let's say FD01, let's say 1/64 is the route going, for example, to, let's say, VNet A, right? Then it has ability to specify the route to be going, for example, VNet B, right? Has ability to, for example, okay, if, for example, sometimes something is going to, let's say, :/0, right? Then go through some appliance, which is, for example, like, let's say, SLB appliance that kind of arranges traffic to the internet, this kind of stuff, right? So the routing is already supported on V6. At least it is specified on the dash with different routing times. How much each vendor implements is an open question, right? But it's already supported. But one interesting stuff that from this NAT64, right? If the packet arrives from the
Michael,
yes.
Could you please increase the font a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yes, kind of. Yes, works. Thanks. Also, in the screen sharing, there should be like on the left button, there should be kind of plus. FYI, there's also something that recently teams implemented. So you should potentially also be able to. So basically, if the routes are going specific stuff, right? So if we consider, let's say, this machine learning VNet or whatever this kind of stuff, being able to access all the Azure, then all the kind of traffic will be outside of this will be routed through this smart switch, and the smart switch will have basically route to different VNets inside Azure that needs to communicate with, right? We'll have some route to the internet, right? But also we want introduce ability in hardware, not in software, right? To do this NAT64, right? Which means that basically if the destination prefix is for example, I think this is how it's defined in RFC. If the destination prefix is /96, right? Sorry, 96, right? Then you want to support kind of like different action type, which will be saying NAT64, right? Which will refer to some pool, and the pool we don't need any complex configuration of the pool, so we don't need basically restrict number of ports. Pool can be just, for example, some of the NATing IPs. Let's say I'll use basically 10.0.0, let's say six as a nothing, like two nothing IPs or whatever, right, with all the ports, right? But we need to refer to the same pool, right? So at least this is how we were thinking about modeling this, because at the end, this is just the prefix, the NAT64 prefix, that every traffic that goes there should just apply different action instead of going this kind of stuff. Then basically this will be translated with the pool. The source IP will get translated, right? The destination is getting extracted. This is how NAT64 works, right? And then from the pipeline processing, because this gets translated to the actual destination, right? And let's say destination, let's say if the packet is something like going to, let's say 8888, let's say, right? Then of course, once this gets translated, like a source will be snatted to 005, and then let's say port 88, this kind of stuff, and destination will be this actual, and this needs to be stateful, right? So the traffic comes back, and this port, for example, like 443, right? Then this is how the future traffic will look like after NAT64, right? And because this is a V4 traffic, right? It of course needs to go through the V4 pipeline, right? But this is up to vendor basically how to implement it, right? So either this traffic can be injected back, right? Or it can be constructed in a way that first there is, like, let's say IPv6 route pipeline, then after this it can go IPv4 route pipeline, something like this, right? So it can be implemented in a different way, right? Either reinjection of the packet, right? Or for example, doing this kind of stuff. So if this is implemented in this way, then let's say if the packet is V6, it just hits the first one, but if nothing happens, it's still V6, it just basically skips this pipeline, right? If the packet is, for example, just V4, because the routes are V4, right? The packet doesn't match the V6 route table because it's V4, so it just skips to this one, right? And it goes out, right? If the packet hits this, right, this one will hit this, will convert it to the NAT pool, and then hit this. So basically, there is different way to potentially implement. There is also injection, right? But I think the main stuff is that the different action type. So we have basically VNet direct, we have appliance. To introduce action type NAT64, which refers to some pool object, we just have a list of IPs, right? And then this pool object we need to be somehow in the hardware to kind of doing the NATing and in stateful way, right? And then once it gets NATed, of course, the destination address, because the route table may have also some V4 saying that, for example, if you are going to 10/8, go to, let's say, VNet C, let's say, because this VNet may be only V4, right? Versus, for example, if you are going to 0/0, go to, let's say, this, again, the SLB appliance, like management appliance, right? So this needs to later evaluate the route, right? So I think that's the use case, right? To kind of introduce different action type and the NAT pool, and we are still looking into this to potentially put it as an official Dash proposal, closing out stuff, but we need some NAT64 functionality if we are to enable and also full support for the V6, including the VNet that is coming back. Yes.
Yeah,
hey, Prince.
I go, like,
yes.
The community has any questions here, or? Okay, so Michael, if I understand and summarize this right, like basically you are saying, like, with Smart Switch expected to deploy in an IPv6 only network, then we need to update our current Dash models to support those IPv6 scenarios. Like, for example, the one that we have today is about CA in IPv4,
yes.
IPv4 only mode. So that needs to support IPv6 plus this new routing action type that is NAT64, which will require an additional pipeline lookup of first to IPv6 route table and then to IPv4 route table, etc. Right? So yes. Basically, what I'm understanding is, like, we need to revisit some of our current pipeline models or current support model to fully support IPv6 instead of the current IPv4. That's one aspect of it. The second is, in order to support an IPv6 only network, then we need to have some additional actions like this NAT64, which is also not currently there. So yes, two ways to, or two things to support on the Dash, right? To onboard the scenarios, right? That's the summary, right?
Yes,
okay.
That's the summary, exactly,
okay.
right?
Okay.
So basically,
Michael.
Yeah. Yes.
Quick question. Do you plan to have this NAT64 action fully compliant with the RFC? No modifications?
With which NAT64 RFC or which RFC?
Yeah.
So the NAT64 RFC actually specified the specific prefix, right? So I explicitly want to support this as a route because I don't want to just limit to this prefix, because we also have scenarios where the customer wants to basically route different prefixes, right? So from this point of view, no, it will not be compliance from this. This will be just a route, and then just nothing should happen.
Okay. Thanks.
So I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So Prince, the question for you and Michael is, right, when are we expecting this to be necessary or needed, right? I think it may be there in some native APIs, but I don't know if it's there in the Dash version of it, right?
Yeah, I think that Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. Like first we'll create a document with the use case definition, but then we'll need the community help to help to work on the pipeline models and generating the SI headers and stuff like that. But of course, like we can plan the work between the companies. Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely like few months away, those kind of stuff, right? But I would say like potential is huge, because basically, as you guys can see from the announcement, right, it's completely new data center. This data center will start be utilized, or it's already maybe even being utilized for some of the stuff, right? And they are natively v6.
I think, Michael, we have to get this started. Like, if we want to get everything ready in a few months, this work has to start happening now, right? Like, so, Christian, I think we need to create issues and get owners assigned for this, right? Like, I'm hearing like 3 different things to be supported by the Dash community. Like, one is the counters that Michael explained before. So that's one work stream. Then the second work stream is IPv6 support for the current IPv4 model. Then the third is about this NAT64 routing type and the pipeline lookup, right? So there are 3 different work streams that we want the community to be engaged and get the work started.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning of the project, we were always asked, how much IPv6 should we plan for on the hardware, and how much memory is it going to take, And we said back in the day, make it configurable.
But the thing is, this is very interesting and complex problems to solve, right? Like, for example, current private link, if you look, like it is a v4 to v6 translation. Now, when it comes to v6 to v6 translation, there will be like a good amount of challenge that we have as a community to solve. So these are good and great problems to solve, which is what.
And I asked you in the chat, Prince, for the counters PR or issue. Do you want that filed against section 3.4 of the SONiC-HLD, where it talks about, CLI for counters, or do you just want a whole separate PR and issue?
I think the counters should be whole separate.
Okay. Okay. PR or issue?
I mean, we can start with issue so that the assignee can work on the implementation.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yep.
So
we can add those.
3 big features coming to Dash is what I'm saying.
Yes, AI has huge potential, and right now, kind of it's kind of pushing a lot boundary on the IPv6. That's also pretty cool stuff.
I agree. It looks like I won't have time to do an overview of what's in play, what's waiting for review, what's been done, etc. We can do that next time. I guess I'll go around, Mersha, Ted, or AMD team. Marian, do you guys have anything you want to cover before we have to drop?
No,
Ted?
Thanks for asking.
Okay.
I want to have potentially one confirmation because I think that was kind of discussed, but one thing that it's important from the security, I want to make sure we have it, or we have some management tests or something like this, is that basically when we are doing this VXLAN NCAP, right, on the packets, and also the DCAP, right, for doing the NCAP, there is specific destination port and a specific source port range, right, on the VXLAN, right? And I just want to, and I know that this is being used for the NCAPing, I just want to also make sure that for the traffic coming in, there is actually a validation that before decapping, this actually also came from the specific port and that specific port range, not outside of the port range, because this port range is explicitly kind of like smaller and kind of like block, and is definitely not overlapping with whatever is standard-wise, mostly so the customer can use it, right? But we kind of also block the specific ranges on the edge devices. So we also want to make sure that from the inbound perspective, we only also accept that specific restricted port range from the pipeline, not basically everything that has this destination port, right? So I just want to make sure that this is for sure handling harder from the security perspective.
Yes, I don't know if you can see my screen. We had a PR 2175 about looking to do the UDP source port definition. And Marian and NVIDIA had looked at that. So I thought we had that covered, right, Marian?
There was a typo in the comments. I fixed it. We need to run the regression and it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
And Marian, this also covers validation that if something comes outside, the packet gets dropped, right?
That's specifically for that. When the
cool. Awesome.
packet comes from outside with the wrong port, it will get dropped. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So okay.
So Christina, this is not the PR; it's a different one.
Okay, I'll find it and put it in the chat. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.